So I have to make sure I clarify this, because we don't want to demonize the hydra. We don't want to demonize tardigrades. We don't want to demonize the microbial world. We don't want to be investing so much in antibacterials, antivirals, antifungals, antibiotics. We don't want to be investing in anything antibiotic at all whatsoever. And so you have to understand, this is not about demonizing hydra or tardigrades or humans or animals or plants or anything of that matter. This is about maturing biodiversity without developing so much reproduction. Now, we need obviously a certain amount of reproduction, okay, to keep the human race going and balance with the environment. But how much reproduction and why is the issue. And so, how am I going to say this? And so, we have to figure out what kind of children are we going to reproduce in our society when it comes to animals, when it comes to humans, when it comes to domestic creatures. And so this is why biotech is developing a food source, so that way we're not developing animals to slaughter down the road, that we have a way to get all the nutrients without destroying sentient beings. And so how does this translate to humans? Okay, so since hydra are in your water, air, and earth and food, it is the immature hydra in biodiversity is what's wreaking havoc on the planet and in people's bodies. And so this is why then child sacrifice is practiced in those really extreme occultic groups, because that is a representation of birth control so as to save the planet. And people don't like that. I understand that. But there is something symbolic with it. And so if you don't want to have child sacrifice like that practiced in the extreme occultic groups, then we have to control child bearing in humanity as well as in our pets, so that way they're not being sacrificed to any kind of system that practices that type of thing. And that how are you as a human going to be something indispensable to your community? And if you do have a child, that then you raise that child in such a right way so it doesn't become a human sacrifice. And let me tell you, politics, religion, and science develop human sacrifice because it has to. Human sacrifice is actually necessary. And I don't think I'd ever realize I'd be ever saying this, but I don't like the notion of human sacrifice in of itself. But when it comes to replication, when it comes to cancer, what gets sacrificed? Well, ultimately it's the human. But what is their symbolic way of sacrificing or taking away life in your body? Well, it's oncology. Even though you're not really destroying anything in your body, you're just pissing it off and you're spreading it around by blasting it. Ultimately, the end result is a faster journey to death, death. And so, I have to find a way to explain what hydra are, and to where they're not being looked at as evil. Though politics, religion, and science will paint them as evil, but it really it's the rampant reproduction of children, because hydra replicate very quickly. The fragments of them basically add life to anything that it goes and commandeers. And so that's the magic in our society, are the hydra. They give life and they take away life. Hydra give life and they take away life. And you have to figure out on which side of it do you want to stand on. Do you want to be the ones to develop life to have it be taken away? Or do you want to develop life where it is indispensable to the environment and is part of the ecosystem that isn't taking more than it's contributing to? And so, so I have to make sure I say this correctly. That hydra, hydra Hydra is the magic. Hydra is the magic that gives life, and also takes away life. And so since humans came from someplace, we don't really know where humans came from. We don't know if we took away everybody on Earth, how would we repopulate the planet with humans? Well, do we want to actually ever realize that type of thing where we have total human extinction and then hope and then wonder? No, we want to have a few humans that still have the innovation and the knowledge of what's going on today still left on this earth. We want to have an infrastructure already in place. We just need to cut down the amount of human reproduction, the amount of human replication, the amount of cancer, disease, and chronic illness and suffering. And so if we characterize Hydra not as the enemy as we see in politics, religion, and science, like good and evil, we characterize Hydra as the ones that give life and the ones that take away life, then you have the choice to give life to yourself without reproducing so much that it takes away from the community. Now, this is the thing. Who is the one that says who can have a child and who can't? Therein lies the problem. There's the politics, religion, and science. There's what science has to deal with, is who they deem is appropriate to have a child and who they deem is appropriate that doesn't have a child. And so instead of saying, okay, well, you can have a child and you can't, or you can live or you can die or whatever, then they employ a frequency. They employ something very aggressive that will then cause people to be faced with a choice. Resist the environment and pass away, and then that also gets translated to their offspring, or they assimilate to the environment and they adapt and they stay alive and they teach that to their offspring. And so your ability to adapt is who they want to stay on this earth, because that is you are now the intelligence. You are the prototype of the kind of mankind that they want on this earth, that will be the one to be the good steward of their environment, the good steward to the animals. And so Hydra give life and they take away life, and man and Hydra, same thing, they will develop a logic that the environment is the one that will determine who lives and who dies, not a specific human, not a specific microbe. That if you, human, is so extremely intelligent, where you are so strategic to stay alive despite the changes, despite the gradual changes that are going on, because right now we had a first wave, there's going to be a second wave, third wave, fourth wave, and fifth wave. If you can survive all these waves of frequency upgrades and adaptation evolution, then you will be the ultimate human that will be allowed to procreate. Because you were able to handle the adaptation. You'll be able to know how to deal with the upgrades to the environment. And most likely, if you know how to adapt to the upgrades to this environment where you don't pass away from your own predisposed issues, chances are you're not going to want to have a child. Chances are you won't want to have a child. You won't want to procreate or have a big family, because you realize now that big families and procreation is based upon diseased genes. And when you have diseased genes, then yeah, you're going to want to procreate, because that's the Hydra's way of replication. When the Hydra get injured, they fragment and they go and become, they re-immortalize, they regenerate, and then they go and give life to something else to find a host. And so, yeah. And so yeah, the Hydra, they give life and and so I have to be very, 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 very careful on how I characterize this, because I don't want to fall into the whole good versus evil, because that's already in people's worlds, is that there's good, there's evil, death is evil, life is good, but there is intelligence. And so immature Hydra in biodiversity are like the children in humanity and domestic animals. And so now we have to take this further and say, okay, your child and you must mature, and if you happen to pass away, then it means that you don't have what it takes to adapt to the changes. If you pass away in the third wave in this frequency, and if you're being chipped away and you're getting cancer, disease, and chronic illness in every single frequency raise, and you're aging in every single frequency raise, and you're not staying youthful and adaptive and changing whatever, if you can't handle these aggressive changes between now and 2030, then already you've taken yourself out of the running to be the ultimate human. And that's really what it comes down to. That's what it comes, and so that's what the whole child sacrifice is all about. That's what the whole human sacrifice is all about. And they've practiced that in the Incas, in the Aztecs, in the pagan. All of that human sacrifice is based upon, women, and in the old days, women and children, because they were the ones that kept reproducing. Okay? And so what's up with the men? The men were just the workers. Men were, they shouldered the stress of building the infrastructure. And then women and children, okay, were the ones that kept, the women were the ones that kept reproducing, helping building the infrastructure. But now that the infrastructure is built, we don't need as many children. We need women and men. We need strong people, but we need them to be evolutionary. And they have to be, gentle, not super aggressive. The tardigrades are the slow steppers. They want to have more of the tardigrade race, the kind, gentle, chilled out with a little bit of the intelligence, of course, from the hydra. And so there is a reprogramming of the population where you don't have so many bullies in our fucking society. We don't have so many aggressive people that want to go and hurt somebody else, that we have a peaceful society. And so that's where the tardigrades come from. My dog is the ultimate prototype of what all animals need to be. Kind, gentle, slow stepping, non-aggressive, not trying to go and eat somebody else or bite somebody else. You want to have animals and humans that are kind, productive, gentle, intellectual, and innovative. But why did we develop aggressive people? Because it took a lot of the aggression, the pent-up aggression through testosterone, through all the muscle building and all the different hormones. We needed the strength. We needed the collective strength of so many men and women to go and build these buildings. I mean, who's going to go and climb to the top of a building and put up a light bulb, at 10,000 feet? I don't want to say 10,000, but you know what I mean. When someone gets paid $20,000 every time they go up this big, huge cell tower to change a light bulb, they get paid $20,000 to climb. So you do it twice a year. That's $40,000 to just climb up once and climb down. But that's like taking your life in your hands, because electricity, you're climbing on a lot of voltage that just one misstep, zap, you're gone. Okay? But I mean, we needed to have a certain amount of people that had that kind of bravery, that kind of like, oh, I can conquer the world. I can go conquer this, go conquer that, and be like whatever, and puff your chest out. And so we needed those guys to go and build the canals, drive trucks, throw steel, inseminate women, and build up more of the infrastructure, build another generation to go and replace you. So if your kid is in the oil fields with you, and then they're the ones that then are also in the oil fields when you die. That was the reason why we had men that were like men's men. But now we don't need as much of that anymore because the infrastructure's been built. We're having now everything electricity. We don't need the fossil fuels. But we're going to have a last money grab between now and 2030. And so I have to characterize Hydra as the ones that give life and they also take it away. And now you have a choice to mature yourself, not age out, because as soon as you age out, you're going to drop a shitload of kids Anytime you have a disease in your genes, you have children. I'm sorry, that's how we have to characterize, but that's the reason why we have so many children on the planet that have so many issues that turn into adults with issues. Because reproduction comes from something off in the genetic line, and it has to go and replicate because the intelligence realized that hydra realized the host was going to die. And so, all right, that's it. Bye.